G'day guys and gal, Warhammer 40k lore exists to support a tabletop game. The tabletop game does not exist to support the lore. It's actually amazing how good the lore is despite having this pretty brutal constriction on it. After all, pretty much every character with a model always magically survives even the most horrific shit because of plot armor and the existence of tabletop. To maintain this status quo, GW has made it clear to us readers that chaos cannot truly be beaten, nor can the Tyranids or the Orcs, as they aren't just going to delete an entire faction and chunk of their range to up the stakes. So GW had to make a solution to keep the stakes high. They mastered the technique of introducing insane, setting-shaking stakes and then managing to make them go absolutely nowhere beyond their own self-contained stories, so that they aren't actually able to affect anything related to the tabletop. It happens all the time, and while I get it, we can still have a laugh about it and take a look at some of the most insane plotlines that really didn't go anywhere. Before we get started, I've officially begun cutting in my quest to get down below 0% body fat for this coming summer. To help me with that, I've partnered up with Factor for this video. Losing fat while maintaining muscle can actually be really hard, as it relies on you being in a caloric deficit but with a high protein diet, which can only really be achieved by eating quality high protein food and counting calories, something that Factor makes extremely easy, as each meal has an awesome macro breakdown as well as all the nutritional info provided. The best part is that each meal is pre-cooked and just needs a microwave, so it takes you literally just a couple minutes to prepare and then also clean up. Awesome for someone like me that doesn't have the time to cook 3 meals a day and also can't be stuffed meal prepping. The meals are also diverse, with new meals every week, and they are never frozen, so you'll never get sick of them. But what's the catch, I hear you ask? It does sound a bit too good to be true, but it is quite literally catch free, especially since using my link and code POGMAJORG50, you'll get 50% off your first box. So you'd be insane not to at least try it with that kind of discount, and if it isn't right for you, you can just cancel the subscription afterwards. Cheers to Factor for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over 5 of the most interesting, setting-shaking, or unique plotlines that didn't go anywhere at all, or were so self-contained that they literally didn't matter. Now let's get into it. The first plotline I want to talk about is one that is equally awesome and frustrating: the cloning of Primarchs. Primark Resurrection is a hot topic. Is Ferris leading the legions of the damned? Is Conrad's soul trapped in the Gemini's crown? Can Sanguinius revive if Dante, Mephiston, and the Sanguinor do a fucking fusion dance? However, as convoluted as those are, it's been proven that you can literally just clone Primarchs that will then have the same memories and in some occasion, the same power as their previous form. However, because a cloned Primarch is such a setting shakeup and a pretty cheap way to bring them back, any story involving them is very self-contained and always ends with the Primarch clone removed from the setting. When Fabius cloned Horus, giving him back his war gear and signature weapon, it seemed pretty hectic. The War Master returned, ready to unite the traitors and continue the long war, only for Abaddon to physically overpower him and kill him pretty easily. GW has tried to say that this Horus clone was a genuine, true Horus, but that is fucking bullshit. Don't try to lie to me, GW. Sure, it was a moment for Abaddon to shine, but he didn't get any new gear from it or any new power up. It was a very self-contained moment that should have set the galaxy ablaze, but just ended up being a plot point to make Abaddon look cool. The other example is the perfect clone of Fulgrim. Unlike the other Primarch clones, who were lacking that special Primarch sauce, hence died like bitches, this Fulgrim clone had it all. It was Fulgrim in every sense of the word. I've already made a video discussing why he and he alone was perfect, however it doesn't really matter since the same story ends with Fabius trading the Fulgrim clone to Drazyn to then be kept in stasis, removed from the setting before he could actually do anything. With Josh Reynolds stepping away from Black Library, as well as the authors having a rule not to fuck with or use unique characters or plot points that other writers have made in their own series, it seems that Clone Grim will remain in stasis. I do understand why GW hasn't made Clone Primarchs a permanent thing, but we deserve a showdown between Clone Grim and Slut Snake Fulgrim. This next one is multiple plot points in one and is also the spoiler for the Infinite and the Divine book ending. So skip ahead if you don't want to see it, but let's be real, every lore video is a fucking spoiler and none of you are gonna read it anyways. You fucking YouTube lore goblins. The ending is pretty hectic but kind of cancels itself out, with some of the most interesting points that should have shaken the setting apparently having no impact. For example, our two heroes, Drazyn and Orican, are trying to open a tomb which contained the secret to reversing biotransference. However, it's all just a big prank by the Deceiver who then fights them. Orican is able to turn into a godlike being of pure energy, making the Deceiver his his bitch, whilst Trazyn takes one of the Deceiver shards for himself to use as a library and power source for his museum. It ends with Orican getting mad at Trazyn and preparing to destroy the museum as his energy god form, whilst Trazyn asks the Deceiver shard to show him how he can enter the Great Rift. Pretty hectic shit. But with the biotransference reversal being a prank, that plot point goes nowhere. With the arrival of the Silent King, it also seemingly overshadowed and squashed their plot point. As far as I know, Orican didn't end up attacking as his god form, or if he did, we haven't heard about it. Trazyn is still running around, doing stuff for the Silent King and not going to the Great Rift. I really feel like we're on the verge of greatness with Necron lore. First the Infant and the Divine, followed up by the Silent King's return, but now it's just a bit like, bruh. So many plot points just ended randomly or didn't go anywhere. The saddest example of a plot point that didn't go anywhere was the Ynnari books. The Ynnari plot was butchered so badly that it basically removed the Ynnari from the lore despite them gearing up to be a setting-shaking subfaction. Basically, our Ynnari heroes go through various quests, encountering new companions, leveling up, and getting close to awakening Yned. It ends with them fighting their final boss, a mega-empowered Greater Demon of Slaanesh. They have their top lineup, as well as a Solitaire and even some heroes from other Elder factions, all fighting this one Greater Demon. The Greater Demon is even able to kill a few of them, including the Solitaire, before they finally defeat it, with Yned reviving some of the dead heroes afterwards. But then it turns out that the Greater Demon they fought was just an illusion, and that the real Greater Demon was still out there and 10 times more powerful. What the fuck? Also, the final piece of the puzzle they needed to awake Yned is now in Slaanesh's palace, hence pretty much unreachable, so everything they did was for nothing. This pointless plotline was so unpopular that it literally set Eldar lore back a few years. No one liked the books, no one liked the Ynnari, and what should have brought the Eldar back as a true threat instead made them look like a fucking joke. Which sucks, because I love the Eldar, I have a full army and everything. It seems like GW is quietly moving on from the Ynnari plot, focusing on recent range refreshes to keep their Eldar relevant, not their recent dogshit lore. This next one's a bit of a bonus. I'm not going to include it as one of the 5, as it was a pretty minor piece of lore, but I still think it's worth talking about. STCs are mankind's cheat codes, blueprints that let you easily replicate something extremely complicated, extremely easily. STCs were why mankind were top dogs during the dark age of technology. There existed a cure every disease STC that was discovered by the Imperium. It could have changed the lives of countless Imperial citizens, as it would remove sickness from a fuckload of people. It would also really hamper Nurgle. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily cure his warp-based diseases, but it would stop the more mundane outbreaks which Nurgle still gains power from and often uses to introduce his own diseases into the mix. It really could have changed a lot about the Imperium, but it was stolen by some Dark Eldar for a laugh. Cause you know, fucking Dark Eldar. So overall, a massive, juicy, nothing burger of a plot. Our fourth insane plotline that hasn't gone anywhere was the Night Lord Legion preparing to reunite in order to attack Crawford Ulthwé. At the end of the Night Lord's trilogy, a super Night Lord called Decimus, with extremely accurate foresight, united his legion and prepared to attack Crawford Ulthwé, one of the Elder's greatest craft worlds and home of Eldrad. It set up a really cool showdown, the might of the Elder's greatest Farseers versus the Night Lords led by the Space Marine with the greatest foresight in the entire setting. It could have been sick, giving both neglected factions some time in the limelight. However, beyond an offhand comment about most Night Lords currently being busy fighting Ulthwé, nothing has come of it. That would be okay if the book where the Night Lords prepared to attack wasn't written over a decade ago. Eldrad also doesn't seem worried, as he has been running around with the Ynnari, helping Gilliman, not engaging in some foresight duel with the Night Lords. With a decade of no real lore about it, we can comfortably say that this plot point has been abandoned. The final plot point I want to go over is a bit of a controversial addition to this list, as there is still one more book on its way. That wraps up the plotline, but I do want to mention it anyways. This plot being in the Inquisition series, when it's uncovered that Constantine Valdor has spent the last 10,000 years hiding in a pocket dimension, pulling the strings and building up a fuck huge army of super clone blanks and winged blood angels in order to try to do something convoluted and sinister, or maybe heroic. I mention it being a plot point that goes nowhere, since the events of the Inquisition occurs hundreds of years prior to the current setting, and we haven't heard a peep about Valdor or the showdown that is coming. After all, a bunch of major Elder craftworlds have also gotten involved, which in the current setting, they are all doing their own thing and aren't focused on that singular planet. In saying that, time can be a confusing thing in Warhammer, especially when pocket dimensions are involved, so the ending of the final Inquisition book could bleed out into the current setting. It'll either go one of two ways. First, which is most likely, a lot of hectic shit will go down, however it will all be contained within the story. Valdor Valdor most likely having his super army defeated and his pocket dimension destroyed, with himself escaping in case GW want to use him again in the future. This would have no impact on the main story and would explain the complete lack of Valdor or references to the events of the plot in the current lore. Secondly, which I'm really hoping GW have the balls to do, is that the pocket dimension shit fucks with the timeline, spitting out our heroes in the current setting with Valdor leading his forces against Chaos, scoring a huge victory and adding another player to the game. Maybe we get a new Valdor model in plastic. Maybe this is the trigger that brings back another traitor Primark, like Lorga or Fulgrim, who now need to fight Valdor. I'm adding it to the list because it could either be the most awesome payoff after over 20 years of storytelling spread throughout 10 full-length novels and a shitload of short stories, or it could be the biggest fucking waste as the lore is entirely self-contained. The Inquisition series is easily one of the most, if not the most popular 40k book series. They even released an Eisenhorn mini, which is really not something they do for many other book series. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where there's not only a boatload of Battle Mace 40 million hentai, but also a bunch of live action nude cosplay photos. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more pointless content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.